Hyacine, Cipher, and beyond that horizon is Finon, and on top of that, the fake collab. Ladies and gentlemen, we are cooked like fried rice right now, which is why it is very important that we manage our resources in especially this update, considering we shall soon be spread very thin with all the hype characters coming out. And in today's video, I'll be going through all of their kit, possible teams, and playstyles to hopefully help you decide who to go for. I also trying to give you like a clear, no BS opinion, so buckle up. With all that said, let's just take a look at our first new banner. We got Hyacine. She is from the Remembrance Path and is of the Wind element. To generally conclude, she is a very strong healer with solid damage to boot. Let's just jump right into her kit. Her ultimate heals all allies and increases their maximum HP. This is something pretty unique. This also directly suggests that Hyacine is the perfect healer in a castorice team or any team with HP scaling damage dealer, like even Mydei or maybe post-buff Blade. This max HP buff will go for 3 turns, indicated by these 3 green lights on her icon. If we take a look at her skill, it also heals all of her allies and summons her Memo Sprite. The Memo Sprite's talent says that if any of your allies have their HP reduced, this can be by being attacked or even reducing HP via their own kit, the Memo Sprite itself will drain its own HP and heal them. The amount healed looks minimal here, but it happens very constantly, and it's likely that you want to see this as a way to sustain until you take your actual turn with Hyacine for the bigger heals. The Memo Sprite skill, however, deals AoE damage instead. So yeah, suddenly this character can do damage now. The damage of this attack increases based on the amount of healing dealt by Hyacine and itself. Based on the live stream, it did similar or even higher damage than castorice's skill. So yeah, the damage is actually really good for a healer. Now, it is unclear that how long would a Memo Sprite stay for, or would it just always be available and heal you whenever anyone loses HP. We also aren't shown if she can cleanse debuffs, but I'm willing to bet my human rights that she can did. But yep, to conclude, Hyacine seems to play a role as a healer that helps HP scaling damage dealers melee. So like castorice, Tribi, you know, all the newer characters, she can slam extra damage while playing her role, kind of like a Tribi where she deals solid damage on her follow-up attacks as well. This is very useful to clear out the multiple mobs in endgame these days, where you try to kill the weaker mobs in order to weaken the main boss. I do recommend going for her if you, for one, do not own at least 2 top-tier sustain characters yet. For people that are already doing fine, it will be about if you want to maximize your HP scaler's damage output. She's the best partner for castorice, especially with the constant healing from the Memo Sprite, allowing castorice to rack up her charges at maximum speed. Increasing her max HP as well just makes things even better, with castorice scaling off of HP. Alternatively, Hyacine will aid other HP skills like Blade, Mydei, or honestly, she will still just be solid for any other DPS anyway, just because she gives them extra health, lower chances of you dying. And we know for a fact that there is a speed-based healer planar set that is quite recently released that's just perfect for a healer with a Memo Sprite like Hyacine herself, so chances are you want to build her fast and she will be able to keep your entire team alive very consistently while taking a lot of turns. That is actually pretty good for you to just increase your survivability with your healer taking more turns. Do note, however, by taking more turns, it does mean you may want to use more skill points for you to successfully sustain everyone without having an issue. Now, in a castorice team, it does not matter since castorice's team doesn't really use too much skill points, so you're free to really just spam skills anyway with your healer. It's what you would do with Gallagher, but that does showcase the point of how good would Hyacine be when paired with any other HP scalers. Yes, she gives you more max HP, but depending on how much that is, it may not be too big of a difference that you have to pull her just to buff up your Blade or buff up your Mydei's performance. But don't get me wrong, it certainly will help them. It's just a matter of how much will be dependent on how much max HP can Hyacine break. If it's not that big, then it wouldn't really aid a lot of the HP scalers outside of castorice, considering Hyacine can still have a lot of HP changes with AoE healing almost every time anyone gets rid of HP, and castorice does that every turn. This does make her pros and cons quite obvious, with her pros being it aids damage output for HP scalers, it helps you die less with incredible healing, with not much cons to her anyway. Thankfully, if you do decide to get her, she should be very cheap to set up, where you can use the free Remembrance Lycone. That is literally already perfect for her. You do not need to necessarily go for her own Lycone. Moving on from Hyacine, let's take a look at who's the next character that's up for contention for your pulse. We got Cipher. She's from the Nihility Path and is of the Quantum element. A quick conclusion on her role would be that she's a supportive debuffer with high true damage potential. You'll understand what that means once we dive in her kit. Firstly, Cipher's talent Rerun inflicts a special state on the enemy with the highest HP. When allies deal damage to that enemy, Cipher records the damage dealt as her charges right here. Then she also performs a follow-up attack on the same enemy. It's shown to land a defense reduction debuff, but this could be from a Lycone as well. In any case though, yes, it counts as an extra ult charge for Akron, making them very suitable for each other. Cipher's ultimate here deals damage to one enemy, and on top of that deals true damage on the same enemy based on the true damage that she recorded as her charge. The damage done with her ult will be distributed to 2 other adjacent enemies, although it's kinda hard to tell from the live stream. This means that the higher damage your team deals to the person with the special state, the higher damage Cipher can do as true damage. This is very suitable for someone like Akron that just does a lot of damage to the enemy. Think of it as you're converting part of that as true damage with Cipher, right? Moving on, we got Cipher's skill, where you can switch the special state to another target. This does not clear out the recorded damage, and it seems that this skill also inflicts debuffs, which again counts as Akron's out charge. Perfect for you to rack up that incredible ultimate. It is also unclear what exactly are the debuffs that she has on her kit, but she certainly has some, and it's a likely chance they're all gonna just help you do more damage. But until the number's out, we don't know exactly how she would compare to another defense shredder like say Pella. One extra point that's worth your notice would be that we aren't sure if they've capped the amount of damage that Cipher could record. If it's somehow uncapped, you could potentially do some really goofy stuff like putting the special state on a really vulnerable mob, have your single target damage deal say 2 billion damage on it, and record maybe 10% of that is still going to be a lot of true damage that the boss cannot mitigate. But well, again, they have not explained all of that in the live stream. We will have to see. And that is pretty much all with her kit. It's quite straightforward. And to conclude on her, she seems to be an upgrade for Akron teams and potentially even Fei Xiao's team considering Cipher's constant follow-up attacks. The one thing that will decide how strong Cipher is will be how much of your damage will be counted as true damage via her ultimate. This could be insanely strong if she can record say 50% of the damage dealt, but as of right now there's no way to tell, so hey, subscribe to the channel where I'll be testing her out once she's in the test server soon. However, as things stands, I recommend straight up not pulling Cipher yet, but before you get your pitchforks out, hear me out. The wisest choice here is waiting for information on her numbers, and especially information on the next versions, which we do see Finon being drip marketed. It is a fair speculation that we consider we would already have Mydei as the HP based destruction path character this version. Finon could either be a better version of that, which would be insane, or he may introduce a whole new mechanic that you may just find interesting. No harm in waiting for the next program and then making a decision. Not to mention, depending on how all the older characters get buffed, specifically someone like Silverwolf that was used in an Akron team before, it's wiser to just wait for the buff list as well and understand if you really need this character to juice up your Akron team, or hey, you would never know. Maybe after Silverwolf's being buffed, she's just the best in that slot. She might also not be. Anything could happen. Generally speaking though, I recommend hardcore Akron mains to grab her for sure, but still, it's only after we know of Cipher's true damage numbers. For newer players, waiting for coming information will be your best bet in my opinion, but obviously in the end, pull for who you love. For instance, when I look at her being this sassy, I just gotta get her, dude. Who cares how good she is or bad? And those are the 2 new characters that we have, and we're also greeted with one of the craziest rerun batters that I've seen. We got phase 1 being the Herta and phase 2 being Aglaea. These are both literally top tier damage dealers introduced in version 3. That means they're pretty much not power crept, they're top apex predators. Getting their team ready means you're beating any endgame. To start with the Herta though, she's one of the strongest damage dealers, ranking quite high up in any tier list for any game mode. This is mainly because of how the whole endgame currently favors high multi-target damage, which the Herta has one of the highest damage output for that exact scenario. I actually recommend the Herta to be your all-clearing damage dealer, since she is solid in single target, insanely good in multi-target, which is just all of the endgame right now. Do note, however, she does need one other erudition character on the team for her to maximize her damage. The best one being Anaxa or Jay. There are free options, with one of the most prominent ones being the normal Herta. It does work, but it's certainly not as ideal. The only real con that she has is the high skill point usage, where she really needs to use her skill very constantly. This can be managed for sure by thoughtful planning, and especially if you grab her Lycone as well. It gives you 1 skill point every time you ult. That is gonna make it so much smoother. To answer the question of if you should pull her though, if you already own enough insane version 3 damage dealers or just good teams that can clear anything anyway. You don't have to go out your way to get her, of course, unless you love her. But do keep in mind you want her to be in a specific team paired with favorite edition characters that you may not have. If you do have a good team for her though, she's gonna wreck shop. So yep, in the end, if you do decide to get her, expect satisfaction when she dumps millions of damage in any game mode you bring her in. And with that said, let's move on to Aglaea, which will be the rerun banner for the second phase. She is also one of the strongest damage healers, ranking quite up on any tier list for any game mode. The only mode she struggles more in compared to the Herta would be the current Pure Fiction, but you can still 100% clear all of it, mainly with the sheer amount of extra turns Aglaea can take. If you aren't aware, Aglaea is someone that can easily take multiple turns upwards to hitting 300 speed, and all of that just by simply attacking the enemy. The two problems you might want to consider would be that Aglaea is quite tough to build, but she needs high speed, high crit rate, and high crit damage. If you do not own a Sunday, she will rely even more on her own relic stats, since Sunday really helps with the lack of crit rate and getting turns in general. Not to mention Sunday regenerates energy, which is essentially Aglaea's lifeline. You don't want to move out of your ultimate form with Aglaea. Using Sunday definitely solves that problem, or getting an E1, which I do actually recommend going instead of going for a light count, will help you stay in the ult by gaining more energy. In my personal experience, using a free-to-play Aglaea light count with her E1 means that you're going to stay in your ultimate form no problem, deal high damage, and you're looking at a 4 to 5 cycle clear in the recent MOCs. However, in the end though, there is no need to force yourself to go for any extra damage dealers. If say you already beat everything with castorice, Mydei, or any top tier damage dealers with their good teams, you don't have to spread yourself even thinner trying to get an Aglaea team ready. Of course, feel free to go for it if you really do love her. She rivals the Herta currently, and both of them pretty much is one of the best damage ceilings you can ever reach, so it does not matter if you're a mommy player, a meta player, you will love her. The only one thing is, I really do suggest at least having a Sunday or getting her E1 instead. It makes her performance so much smoother. With all that said, to conclude with my honest opinion, there is certainly not a burning need to get any one of these characters. And I'm saying this specifically with the future banners in mind. Getting Hyacine for castorice or Cipher for Acheron sounds great, but I'm more thinking of just using a Gallagher for castorice or a nice little Pella or Sparkle for Acheron. That still works anyway, and save for perhaps a broken Finite in the future, or go all in the coming collab. If we were to remove that thought though, in the name of fairness, I think it's definitely worth pulling Hyacine if you own any HP scaling DPS and you main them. She's just going to be the best healer in that team, and no harm in completing them, right? On the other hand, if you're just lacking a strong healer in general, Hyacine is certainly a very valuable pull. For pure meta players, she perfects the castorice and Mydei team, maybe even a post-buff Blade team in the future. If you're the type of player that constantly chases for the highest ceiling possible, Hyacine is definitely the superior replacement for whoever you have as your current healer if you're using a HP scaling team. It is the theme of version 3 after all, being HP manipulation, is what Hyacine is all about. Definitely a worthy pull. For the case of Cipher, definitely wait for her numbers. It will be a very good pull for Acheron if the numbers are solid, since Acheron deals a lot of damage. If the numbers aren't that great though, it does beg the question, why not just stay with your Pella or stay with your Sparkle? But in the end, wait for the numbers to be released. For the case on the reruns, I'd say focus on only 2 teams for now. If you're lacking a team in general, consider pulling on the reruns if you already own their best supports. If you already have 2 consistent teams, go crazy and pull who you like. Or you can consider saving for the GOAT Finite and that Excalibur girl. And with all that said, the final note, pull for whoever you like. The best way to enjoy the game right now is just playing whichever team that brings you joy. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna pull the cat girl. And I know a lot of people who just likes the collab more than anything else, so saving through the version is certainly in consideration. And that will be all. I hope I helped you out, and I try to give you very no BS opinion, at least in my point of view. Do let me know what you're gonna go for in the comment section down below. And that is all. Take care.